Hey guys, Mars here, back with some Malifaux content, and we have the Malifaux 2.0, or they call it M2E actually at the weird forums. We have some updates, and if you don't know what they are, I'm gonna summarize it for you. These are what I found while reading the rule book, and I'm not even gonna get into the actual rules of the actual model itself, like ADJ's updates or whatever's. I'm just gonna go over like the overall rule changes, because I think by 2014 all tournaments are gonna be 2.0. The whole entire 2013, I think some tournaments are gonna go 1.5 rule, and some are gonna go 2.0. Now, before I actually begin covering this, I want you guys to know that I read this today. I was not a beta or alpha tester at all. The first time that I actually heard about 2.0 was my interview with Mac. So I have no idea what the changes were, and I'm actually a little bit excited. But I'm gonna do this particular coverage as neutral as possible, because yes, I am excited about the models. The rule set, I don't know yet, because obviously I don't have time to play it on like any table, because I was not a beta tester and I just read about all these stuff today. So let's start. There are three main changes that I thought was really big when it comes to Malifaux. First one is pre-measuring. Pre-measuring is now allowed in a Malifaux, like I guess comparable to 40k or fantasy. Pre-measuring is a big factor in the game. You know, when 40k and fantasy went over to pre-measuring, a lot of people complain about it. It changes the thing that separates people that played for a while versus the one that played for a little bit, because you know, you can kind of tell the distance. I mean, not up to the millimeter. Some people actually can do that, but it kind of changes a lot of things with pre-measuring, because at any given time people can just measure the distance. It gives them a little bit of tactical advantage. Before, people that knows how to kind of measure with their eye has the tactical advantage, but now they kind of cut that off. So that's one of the biggest changes. Another change that I found is the Soulstone Mechanic. This is the heart of Malifaux, the Soulstone. Another heart of Malifaux, if they have two hearts, is the card system. The card system did not change except for the Soulstone Mechanic. Some of the changes of the Soulstone Mechanics. There's no more combining the numbers of cards. So Soulstones now can be used to add a positive flip into your card, or to add a suit into your card. On damage prevention, you can actually add, I mean, since it's adding a plus to your defense, it also adds a negative flip on the damage on the other side. You can't do healing flips anymore with Soulstone. Essentially, it is kind of nerf, I think. I personally think it is kind of nerf, but the whole plus and negative, you know, the plus and minus of I guess the twisting the fate is still there, but it doesn't have, you know, the addition where, you know, let's say you have a 13 of something, and then you add a Soulstone, you add another 13, that's a 26. Minions will never reach that number because of their low stats, like low defense or low attack. So now it's just positive and negatives, and no more additional of cards. I guess the math is a little bit simpler. I can't even say it's a little simpler, because it's already simple before. It's just there's no more outrageous number. Let's say if you have a defense of 7, the maximum defense you can get with a Soulstone is a 13. And another difference of the Soulstone mechanics, you actually have to declare your Soulstones in the beginning before you flip any cards. And you can add more than one Soulstone before you flip. So let's say someone's attacking me, I wanted a defense, or let's say I'm attacking someone. That's a better option. I'm attacking someone, and I said I want to use 2 Soulstones. One of them is to add a suit, which is a ram, and the other one is also to add a positive flip onto my attack. And I would have to declare that in the beginning, and then as soon as everything, you know, you call out how many Soulstones, the opponent call out how many Soulstones. As soon as you're done with that, then you flip your cards with the positive and the negative flips. That is one of the biggest difference in the Soulstone mechanics that I found. No healing flip. I think that's a big thing, but once you read the stat cards of the actual people, I mean the actual crew members and everything, some of them actually gain healing flips on top of that. So I guess for that particular reason, it kind of balanced out from just a brief look that I saw. Another big thing that I noticed is the turn number. The turn number is now 5 instead of 6. In tournament play, sometimes, you know, if you slow play, I mean, your opponent slow play or you slow play, it can get up to like 3 or 4, sometimes 5. I went to a tournament the other day and then we finished in turn 2 because there's no way that I could win again. So it depends. For me, turn number, I haven't really noticed a big difference between 5 and 6. In doubles, there's a big difference. I mean, it's not much difference for doubles because usually you only get to turn 4 or 5. So you don't usually get to turn 6 within the time allowed. But for singles, it might be a bigger change because sometimes you need that turn 6 to actually do something. So it depends. Again, I haven't played on the table enough to actually test this out. So those are the 3 biggest changes that I've noticed. There's also other changes that I noticed, but it's not as big as pre-measuring because it completely changed the whole entire game, right? One of the changes that I thought it was pretty cool was the new Minion, Henchman, and Forces system. Now, Masters have 3 AP and they are allowed to have 3 upgrades. I'll explain about upgrades in a little bit. So 3 AP, 3 upgrades. Henchmen, some models got upgraded to Henchman level like Kang and Ototo from the 10 Thunders are now Henchmen and they're allowed to have 2 upgrades. They can lead crews no more than 21 soulstones. The soulstone number changes a little bit. I'll also explain that a little bit. There's Peons, which are your totems or insignificant models, usually the one that you don't really care that they die. I mean, they're disposable, sort of. I mean, some totems are indisposable, but you know, that's how Weird actually put them up. And then there's minions, your regular minions. Some of them got buffed out. If you look at the stat cards, I'll post a link where to download it down below, obviously. After minions, there's enforcers. These are the guys that can actually hurt a little bit than the minions, and they're allowed to have 1 upgrades. And then the henchmen, I already mentioned, 2 upgrades and can lead a crew, and masters with 3 AP. And now let's talk about the upgrades. The upgrades are, if you're familiar with Lucas McCabe, the Relic Hunter's crew set, which is the guy with the horse, part of 10 Thunders and Guild. He has upgrades that you can purchase that cost soulstones. But this time the upgrades are actually faction specific. There's, you know, when you buy a faction deck, it's also going to come with upgrades. This is a la MK2, War Machine, Warmer Horde. So you can actually check it out when it's actually released, but they also already have the beta rules where you have to print it out yourselves, including the stat cards. But these upgrades, I can't go into specifics because there's way too many of them, and I don't like it. It adds more flavor to the actual game mechanic, but I thought it was kind of funny. It's a little bit like they toned down the fluff side of the actual crew members. Like Lady J loses her onslaught ability, but within the upgrades you can buy that and you add that onslaught. So it's like taking something away. If you want to play with small soulstone numbers, you can without any upgrades, so everyone kind of look or tastes the same, and then you add the upgrades to add the fluff to it. That's or add back to the original value. Which brings out another topic that I thought was kind of interesting, where the soulstone number when you play is actually higher than before, where organized or tournament play is usually either 25 to 35 soulstones. Now organized play recommended is actually 50 soulstone, because all the upgrades that you're gonna have, you know, this is for singles, not doubles. 50 soulstones was the old brawl, the minimum of the old brawl where you use 2 masters, but this time 50 soulstone is for 1. Each crew set is designated around 25 soulstones. Like Mei Fang's rail crew was already at 25 soulstones when it launched at 1.5, so somewhere around there. And now they're trying to increase it. So you have, let's say, assuming everything is 25 soulstone for a crew set, you have 25 soulstones to add upgrades onto that. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then I mentioned the dueling system change because of the soulstone, the actual steps to do a duel. First step is now actually determine how many soulstones you want to use, and again you can use more than 1 soulstone in that particular duel. So the steps are now declare your soulstone, and then you flip the cards and add the stats, your stats to it. Choose to cheat the fate, which is kind of interesting because you ended up only picking 1 card at the end. If you have a negative flip, no matter what, you can't cheat it. But if you somehow add Soulstone or whichever to add into a straight flip or a positive flip, then you can cheat it. So the fourth step is actually cheated. And then the fifth step is determining whether the attack or the duel is successful or not. Another change that I found was every abilities now has its own CA value instead of a generic CA. Every ability has a CA value, and then there's a new symbol there. It's not a symbol, it's 2 letters, it's TN. That is the target number. Instead of casting cost, it would be called TN now, target number. And then there's CA, which is your casting ability. And then there's the ML, which is the melee attack ability. And then the SH, which is the shooting ability. Shooting and melee obviously does not have target number, but for casting, CA, it always has a TN, and then there's a resist flip in whichever, as usual before. The defensive stance mechanic is now changed. The defensive stance now, the way that it works, you discard a card. Some models has upgrades that require you to not discard cards, but in general, you discard a card, and then you spend X amount of AP to determine how many plus flips on the defense you have. So let's say I'm spending 2 AP to do a defensive stance, discard a card. Now I would have 2 positive flip on my defense when somebody attacks me. So the defensive stance kind of makes you don't want to move anywhere. If you want just 1 positive, then yeah, you can spend 1 AP to move. But you kind of brace yourself to get that 2 pluses instead of spending 1 AP to get less walk and everything else. So you still can walk full if you do it with 1 AP, but if you do both AP, you can't walk anymore, but you have the full 2 pluses on your defensive. There's a little bit of line of sight clarifications that I actually personally didn't really get before, because before I was always confused what determined covers and what doesn't determine covers. Now what you do is within the base, because Malifaux essentially is a tabletop, like you look at it straight down from the top, so they're all just like circles because they have 30 millimeters, 40 millimeters, and 50 millimeter bases. Now what you do is you draw 2 lines from both end of the circles of your bases, and if one of the line actually hit the other opponent, so you draw 2 straight to the edges to the edges of your opponent's model, and if any of those line actually hits, then it's covered. If both hits, that's full line of sight. I thought that was pretty interesting because I was always confused on how you determine covers, because Malifaux actually, you can model them as high as this and people will still get covered from it. So I thought that was easier for me to understand. I'm still a little confused on how to determine when your height is a little bit higher, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to get it later on when I play 2.0 a little bit more. Another interesting change is the damage spread. When you have the red joker, you flip an extra card for the damage. This time, a red joker is always going to be a severe plus a weak. So it might not be as devastating as before, but it is still pretty devastating. Black joker still trumps over the red joker. That stays the same. It's just when you flip a damage flip with a red joker, you're always just going to get a severe and a weak. The companion mechanic, especially with models like the one that has family companion or kin companion like Ophelia or Ortega in this case, changes a lot actually, because before you can actually companion all your Ortegas as long as they're within 6 inches of each other, so you can have a string of, let's say, 18 inches spread of Ortegas and activate them all at once, alpha striking it. But this time you can only activate at max of 2 models. So, and the companion actually works is you move your model and then declare that activation, that companionship. For me, it was maybe it's the card that doesn't specifically say it, but it just says at the end of the activation of, let's say, Perdita, as long as it ends within 6 inches of another Ortega, let's say Nino, you can move Nino right away after that. So within 6 inches of a friendly model. I think they might have to rephrase that. It might be only, within friendly family model or something like that. I don't know how it works yet. They might change it. Again, this whole thing is still in beta. It's not finalized. We're still trying to figure out how to play it. But if it says like within 6 inches of any friendly model, then that means you can alpha strike with anyone as long as you have companion. So that might have to change. It is pretty interesting because now you can only activate 2 models at a time instead of, all Ortegas or all of the Ophelia crew. or all the gremlins or whichever, you know. So I'm gonna have to look into that a little bit more. Now they also have this thing called Horror Duel. Basically, this is what was the Terror Duel before. They still have Terror Duel, they just call it Horror Duel. Instead of rallying or running away, the way that horror works now, if you don't pass that test, you just get paralyzed. I believe that is a lot easier than figuring out what people, like, you know, models are running away or whichever. I always get confused with that. But that horror change, you know, you just get paralyzed, is a lot easier for me. It makes me think a little bit ahead in the future. Like, you know, if you want, I wanted to charge a model a high horror duel that I have to beat. Another change is the burning effect. I use Mei Feng, and I had a partner that uses Karius, so we had a lot of burning tokens. So the burning effect changes a little bit. Burning tokens actually now stack, so there's burning +1, burning +2, same way that poison works, so that you can always stack burning tokens. And then at the end of the turn, you know, during the, not the closing phase, but the upkeep phase, you get damaged the same amount of burning tokens that's on you, and then after that you remove them all. Now another interesting addition to the burning mechanic is someone within, I believe it's someone within 3 inches or 1 inch, you can actually get someone else to extinguish it with 1 interaction AP. That is pretty interesting. It's like you're patting someone down so the fire would go off. Every time someone interacts with you, it removes 1 burning token from you, so you just have to keep doing it until it's 0 if you have more than 1 burning token. Deployment zones. The 3 main ones stays the same, which is the diagonal, the regular standard deployment, and then there's also the 2 corners. The 2 corners are slightly changed. It looks like a Tetris block like that now. There's one that's really interesting. If you flip a Joker for deployment, or, you know, whoever the first person who to determine what deployment zone you guys get, if it's a Joker, any of the Joker, you start off 12 inches away from each other. That is really, really close. And imagine if you're fighting against, I don't know, Lilith or Lady J, if you're within 12 inches of them, that you're gonna get swarmed by the Nephilim really, really quick. Unless they change the rules on the stat cards of the Nephilims. I haven't really gotten into that. I've gotten the Guild and the 10 Thunders and Arcanist. Haven't looked on the other ones, but if you guys want to look at it, you know, the download link is down below. The strategies is now a little bit different as well. Strategies now determined by the actual suit of the cards instead of the actual number. Now there's only basically 5 strategies. If you flip a Ram, you get Turf War. Then if you flip a Crow, you get Reckoning. If you flip a Mask, Reconnoiter. And if you flip a tome or a book, you will get Squatter's Right. Squatter's Right is basically Line in the Sand, sort of. And if you flip a Joker, it's going to be Stake a Claim. So that's one of the biggest difference of the strategies. The schemes are totally different now. The name of the schemes are all the same, you know, but the way that you actually determine the scheme is a little different. You flip 2 cards in the beginning. One player flips 2 cards. Each suit and each number determines a certain number of certain schemes that you're allowed to take. There's a couple of schemes that's already are allowed to take, but since there's 2 cards with 2 suits and 2 numbers, you can have up to 4 plus that extra one that's always there to determine what schemes that both of you guys can take. So the strategy is always shared. And then the schemes, you can choose out of a pool of a determined random number. Out of 5, you can, out of, you know, a whole pool of different schemes, which you can also find in the details when you download the actual rulebook. It determines what schemes that both of you guys can take. So yeah, you can have the same schemes, or you can have any option out of the 5. So I thought that was kind of like an interesting mechanic. The shared strategy, I don't really mind it that much personally, because I actually prefer it that way because it's not confusing. Like, oh, what's my strategy? Oh, what's your strategy? Oh, wait, we have different strategy. For me, that's confusing because I don't like keeping track on everything. I would have to have cards out on the actual table to actually determine what strategies and everything, just to remind myself, because I played Mei Fang before and she has already too many triggers and I have too many things to remember. And now I have to remember my strategy and schemes as well. I don't know, my brain does not compute that way. I'm sorry, but that's just my personal opinion. And then for the schemes, there's also scheme markers. That was a new mechanic for me. That was kind of interesting. So instead of completing stuff by destroying, there's some like destroy evidence and stuff that you can still destroy stuff. But there's this new mechanic of scheme markers that I need to get into a little bit. I read it briefly. Still kind of confused because like some of the Death Marshal has that ability where if they die, they drop that scheme marker and the scheme marker base-to-base contact with them. It's called Finish the Job or something. So read it out, and you know, if you guys want to let me know what it actually means, that would be helpful because I'm gonna just try to keep reading rules over and over. So now it comes to the part where I actually give out my opinion on it. In general, I'm still pretty neutral. I am really excited about the model. I'm super excited about the model. I didn't like the Nicodem model before. I love how the artwork is, and I'm hoping that the 3D render of the plastics are going to be like that. Leviticus looks really interesting, and these are just based on the models because the rule set, I haven't played it, I haven't tested. I got to try it with a couple of friends, you know, actually sit down and play it with people who actually already know about the new rules. I'm probably going to try to do that, you know, within the next couple of weeks. By then, I would give out a better opinion. I guess I'm hoping to be able to answer more questions regarding that. At this point, I'm just reviewing what I read today. It just came out today, and I can't really give out a good opinion on it because, you know, I've only seen this for one day, and I've only heard of this the other day at Adepticon. So I have 2 days, not even 2-day full experience on this. So from what I see, some of the changes make things easier, some of the changes make things a little bit confusing. But in any game mechanic, any changes, people are going to say something about it. Whether it's negative, whether it's positive. I'm in a neutral zone because I'm sort of new to Malifaux. I play a little bit more than most people, I guess. But I'm still new at Malifaux, and now the rule change. This is the first time that I actually experienced a rule change because I never really played 40k or fantasy. Blood Bowl, I didn't really play it much except for the PC, and the rule was already the 3rd edition, and now they have the living rulebook. Mordheim, I never experienced through it. War Machine, Warhammer Horde, I never got through from MK1 to MK2. This is actually the first game that I experienced firsthand that I was playing it constantly, and then the rule changes. So I'm still shell-shocked from it, but I'm excited. So I guess I'm a little bit more neutral positive on this. So these are my thoughts on the Malifaux 2.0, and these are the summaries that I have. My notes are going to be down below as well as the link to actually get the new rulebook. Look out for the new changes on the graphics. I mean, the artwork of the new stuff. Victoria's, love it. Love it, love it, love it, and I'm looking forward for Gen Con. I'm not gonna go, but a couple of my friends are going, and I'm gonna give them money to actually buy me some stuff. But if you can't go to Gen Con, they can actually release models for Gen Con, and you can buy them. Even the limited Miss models like Miss Pack, Mysterious, and Misdemeanor, they always have a new Miss like every Gen Con sort of. So you can get them from online. The ordering system is a little wonky last year. I don't know about this year, but good luck on that. But yeah, this is my thoughts. First impression on Malifaux 2.0. Hopefully you guys enjoy it, and look out for more Malifaux 2.0 coverage.